Today we're going to make this pretty retro flower block. It would look great combined with other blocks in a quilt, or it would also look great as a repetitive design on its own. Welcome to Poole TV, I'm Monica and I make Quilt as you go quilts. This block is perfect for quilt as you go. It combines a bit of piecing with stitch and flip. It has a lot of little pieces, perfect for scraps. I'm just using fabrics from my stash. I love using up what I have and buying only what I need. To make this block, we are going to start by piecing our petals like this, and then stitching and flipping them onto the batting and backing, which is when you piece and quilt at the same time, making it a quilt as you go block. So let's get started. To make one block, you will need a 3-inch square for the center, 4 1 1/8 inch dark pink squares, 2 1 3/4 inch by 3 inch medium pink rectangles, and 2 1 3/4 inch by 5.5 inch medium pink rectangles. You'll also need 8 1 3/4 inch by 3 inch light pink rectangles and 4 1 1/8 inch light pink squares. From the background fabric, you will need 4 1 3/4 inch squares, 2 1 3/4 inch by 8 inch rectangles, 2 1 3/4 inch by 10 1/4 inch rectangles, and 16 1 1/8 inch squares. You will also need a 10-inch square of backing fabric and a 9-inch square of batting that is centered onto the wrong side of your backing square, leaving a 1/2 inch gap around the edge. I have held the layers together with a light application of quilt basting spray. The gap is so that it can be joined together with my easy cover strip method. If you want to use the traditional joining strip technique, then cut your batting to the same size as your backing fabric. I will put a link in the description for both of these tutorials so that you can check them out later. Here are the cutting instructions. Take a screenshot or head to our blog. Mark a center, vertical and horizontal line. Then mark a line that is 3.5 inches away from the backing fabric. Do this on all 4 sides. As usual, I am using a 4B lead pencil. This is a nice soft lead that marks easily onto the batting. Make sure that it's sharp and remember to press lightly when marking your lines so that they don't show through on light fabrics. Then mark a line that is 2 1/4 inches away from the backing fabric, and once again do this on all 4 sides. Take the yellow center square and place it in the center of the block with the right side facing up. Hold it in place with a pin and set aside as we are going to prepare to piece our petals together first. Take the small 1 1/8 inch squares and mark a diagonal line from corner to corner on the wrong side. I'm using a Sewline Trio marker. You can use a fabric marker of your choice. So go ahead and mark all of your lines. Set them aside and take your light pink 1 3/4 inch by 3 inch rectangles and place them on your cutting mat with the right side facing up. We are going to prepare to sew the small background squares onto the corners. I'm using a couple of dabs of fabric glue to hold the squares in place. You don't have to do this, but I found it was easier to sew because the small squares are a little bit fiddly. Position the diagonal lines so they are pointing to the center of the rectangle. Make sure you apply the glue to the outer corners only, because these corners will end up being cut off. So head to the machine as we are going to sew on the marked diagonal lines. At the machine I have a neutral coloured thread, a straight stitch with a length of 2 and a size 70 universal needle and my standard foot. So this is my fabric leader. It stops the machine from chewing your fabric when you first start sewing. We are going to sew slightly outside the marked line on one side of all of our pieces, chaining them through. The reason why we sew slightly outside the marked line is to ensure that when we flip our squares over to meet the corner, they'll meet perfectly. So once you have sewn down one side, cut off your leader and sew across it. Cut all your pieces apart and chain piece down the other side. Head to the iron and press the corner of the square to meet the corner of the rectangle. I like to press this first to make sure they are all accurate, and if all is fine, then trim away the excess, trimming roughly 1/4 inch outside from the stitching line. This is what it will look like from the back. So go ahead and do that to all of your other pieces. Now we are going to sew the rectangles in pairs with right sides together. At this stage you can use either your 1/4 inch foot, or I am using my standard foot with the needle position moved over to give me a 1/4 inch seam guide. Head to the iron and press the seams open. So here are the petals coming together. Take the 3 3/4 inch background squares and place them on opposite side edges of 2 of our petal pieces. Head to the machine and sew them with the right side spacing and a 1/4 inch seam. Head to the iron and press the seams towards the petals. It might seem a little bit bulky, but it will make sense when we stitch and flip these pieces onto the block. Here are all our petal pieces sewn together, and now let's go and stitch and flip. Take a dark pink square and place it in the corner of the yellow center square with the diagonal line running across the corner. Mark dots 1/4 inch away from the underneath fabric. We do this so that our stitching lines don't cross over on the back and look messy. Still with my same foot and my needle moved over for a 1/4 inch seam, I have a neutral colour thread that will tie in with the backing fabric, a stitch length of 3, a size 80 quilting needle, and I have also set an automatic tie off and the scissors function. If you don't have this, don't worry, just do a little reverse stitch at the beginning and end of each row. Sew from dot to dot and repeat this process for all 4 sides of the centre square. When you flip the corner of the dark pink square, it should meet the corner of the yellow square. Head to the iron and carefully press, making sure not to press the batting. Check all your squares meet the corner of the center squares, and if so, trim away the excess a 1/4 inch away from the stitching line. Now take your medium pink 3-inch long rectangles, place one right sides together of the side of the edge of the center square. Use the marked lines as a guide and make the edges of the rectangle level with the lines. Mark your 1/4 inch dots and sew from dot to dot, and repeat this process for the other side. When you flip these rectangles, they should be level with these marked lines here. That way you know that your seam allowance is correct. Head to the iron and press. Rotate the block and sew the 5.5 inch long pink rectangles onto opposite side edges in the same way. Head to the iron to press. You will know that your seam allowance is correct when your pieces meet the marked lines, as I mentioned before. Now take the light pink 1 1/8 inch squares and sew them onto the corners in the same way we did with our dark pink squares on the center square. Remember to sew slightly outside the marked line. Oh, and here I am taking my step-by-step photos for the blog post, which you can also follow along with. You can find the blog on our website, and I'll put a link in the description for you. So now to sew on our petals. Take the 2 shorter petal sections and place one of them right sides together with the side edge of the flower. If your fabric pieces have shrunk back a bit, like mine, use the marked lines as a guide. Align the open seam with the center marked line on the block. Mark your 1/4 inch dots and sew from dot to dot. You can pin this in place if you like. I found it easy enough to sew without pins and just stopping to adjust if needed. And do the same to the other side. Head to the iron and press. Now sew on the 2 longer petal pieces. Align the seams. You will see that because of the way we pressed our seam, the seams will now nest or link in together like this. Also make sure you align the center seam of the center line of the block. Mark your dots and sew from dot to dot, repeating this step for the other side. Once again, you can pin if you like. I just like to sew and adjust as I go. head to the iron and press. Before we sew on our border strips, mark a line that is 1 inch away from the side edge of the block. Do this on all 4 edges. This is to ensure that our final seams will be nice and straight. Sew the shorter strips onto the opposite side edges first, aligning them with the 1 inch marked line. Mark your 1/4 inch dots and sew from dot to dot. Do this for the other side as well. Head to the iron and press. Now sew on the final border strips, sewing from edge to edge of the backing fabric. Flip the strips over to the right side and give the block a final press. Now turn your block to the wrong side and trim to the same size as your backing square. And here is our retro flower block. So if you're joining in with our free quilt as you go along, you'll need to make 2 retro flower blocks. I absolutely love how this scrappy quilt is coming together. Looking forward to seeing all your blocks in the Facebook group. And if you're new here, don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.